Evil, one of the most complex and debated concepts in human history, shaping morality, religion, philosophy, and storytelling. Evil can be defined as the absence of good or the presence of malice, or simply just actions that you do to harm others. However, what is considered evil is often subjective and shifts across cultures, time periods, and different perspectives. Some people see evil as a thing that will always be there, while other people believe that it's a product of your circumstances, choices, or your psychology. But the reason I'm talking about evil right now is because it's what separates an antagonist and a villain.
You don't know why you feel, and you feel like you're.
You might be a little confused by the previous statement, so let me elaborate. Technically, according to ChatGPT, an antagonist is someone or even something that serves as an obstacle of the main character of the story. Think about an antagonist like the Great White Shark in Jaws, or like Fate in the Final Destination movies, like literally Fate. These things are not evil, they're just there to oppose the protagonist. Now, think of an antagonist like the Joker, or Griffin from Berserk, or Palpatine, or Hitler. Maybe I'm tweaking out, but you can clearly see the difference. Basically, a villain is an antagonist with evil intent. And even though the overly evil trope can be pretty fucking corny sometimes, especially with no real reason behind it, like dumbass horror movie villains, like, bro, y'all are just psychopaths, or like unintelligent entities with a lot of power, like the aliens and shit. That shit is so annoying. Even though an entity with a lot of power and no thought can be pretty realistic sometimes, for the most part, nobody would rather have just an evil for nothing villain than a complex antagonist with meaning and moral stands behind his or her or its actions. This factor is called motivation. Even if a villain looks like one of the worst niggas to ever touch Earth, they should have some sort of reason behind what they do, or else the writing is just ass. A villain without a reason has no place in good media, like Swiper from Dora. What the fuck is this nigga stealing for? Like, I get it, he's a sly fox, blah 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 and shit, but nigga, he's stealing like human stuff. Like, nigga, are you going to pawn it? Are you telling me a fox is going to walk into a pawn shop with a human item and start bargaining on a price? No, that's ridiculous. And what the fuck is he buying with the money? Because it's clearly not clothes. He literally walks around naked with a freak ball navy blue mask like we can't tell it's him. Nigga, we know that's you, yeah? Anyway, back to motivation. Good enough motivation can intrigue a viewer's own morals and have them thinking the villain is actually doing nothing wrong. Like Thanos, he literally experienced overpopulation and came to the realization that the universe is running out of resources. So he decided to eliminate half the universe so the other half can prosper. And he succeeded. Looking back, why didn't this nigga just multiply the resources that we have in the universe by 2 or even 3, my nigga? Like, you could have just amplified the shit. Wouldn't he get the same outcome? I think he just wanted to catch some bodies and whoop some strong niggas, to be honest. And there's nothing wrong with that. It's called challenging yourself. Nah, but motivation is like a foundation in a character, especially a villain, bro. Finding the balance between their morals and motivation to their bad and evil actions enough to make them a villain should always be considered when making a good character, or a good villain, I mean. Speaking on morals, my second point is moral complexity. Like I said before, there is really people that think what Thanos did was not wrong, but just another viewpoint of the story. Most villains believe that what they are doing is not wrong, and they even see themselves as the hero or the avenger of the story sometimes. A villain who I think has the most complex morals is Eren from Attack on Titan. He is one of the few characters that we've seen that you watch go from a liberating ideal hero protagonist with a tragic backstory and all that shit, confronting his antagonist of his story for the greater good, to then becoming a world-ending force, terrorist, villain on a global scale. His morals basically shifted when he realized somebody was making these titans, and this same someone had been oppressing his people for years, literally treating them like demons. So he decided in his head, everybody else but his people gotta go. And some of his people agreed, while some of the people fought to stop him. He knew what he was doing was wrong, but he made that choice. The story also shows you that he clearly wanted to be stopped by the people closest to him, which makes him even more complex when you really think about it. But it doesn't change the fact that he stomped out like 80% of the fucking population. That nigga is a villain. His genocide is not justified. He did get back for his people though, and I do fuck with that. Now, the third thing that needs to be taken into account when making a villain is their presence. Or aura for niggas with brain rot. The presence of a bad guy can be the deciding factor on if a show is mid or great. During the early days of My Hero Academia, the main villain for Deku, Shigaraki, was literally not likable. Like, he was a bitch. He was a wimpy ass bad kid with no presence. It seemed like he really wasn't a threat for real. despite having that OP ass quirk. Like, nobody took him serious. It wasn't until I think like season 5 when he finally got an awakening, not to only become a real threat to the main cast, but in my opinion, one of the best written new gen villains, and my personal favorite, I'm not gonna lie. Besides him becoming a walking disaster and being able to literally one-tap cities by just touching the ground, and surpassing the strongest villain in the verse after being in his shadow for years, the way he carries himself and his personality and mindset completely shifted. He became a more self-aware and confident person and started moving like a real inevitable disaster. Before his awakening, he just acted on hate and impulse, but now he acts with purpose, with the goal of wiping away the old world and restarting it from scratch. This nigga became so powerful, Japan's heroes literally had to make a global alliance to stop him, and he was still standing on business. He ran once with the USA's top hero, who has the power to literally do anything by touching it, and he beat her ass, while basically telling her she was trying to fight something that you cannot stop. Enough with the Shigaraki glaze though, back to the video. Aura is genuinely like 50% of what makes a villain. Like, look at Darth Vader, then look at Randall from fucking Monsters Inc. Like, nigga, we are not scared of you. Get your lame ass on. That's the next thing, by the way. Looks or like design, I guess. A unique and memorable design is an essential piece to the puzzle that is a good villain. When I say design, I don't mean that they have to look evil. Looking too evil can actually be pretty bad or cliche, not gonna lie. But what I mean is they have to stand out. Like, when you see a good villain, you should know that they're a major character, whether that you know they're a villain or a good person or not. Like Sato from Ajin. He looks like such a casual, nice guy with a blank look and a smile. But when you see what actually goes on in his head, it changes your entire perspective on his design. Like, that nigga's a psychopath. Another great example of a memorable design is when Itachi was first introduced in Naruto, like OG Naruto. Kishimoto is actually really good at making his villains stand out. The way that he makes Itachi feel so mysterious, but you can also tell a lot by just looking at him by what we already know in the story. He gave him the first scratched off leaf headband, I'm pretty sure, and he was literally flexing his Mangekyo Sharingan on the first appearance, which really gave him an it factor that made him a people's favorite off his looks alone. This design for the Akatsuki cloak also has this certain powerful mystique that only intrigues you more when you see somebody else wearing that shit. Like, damn, these niggas are a whole gang. Watching this shit as a kid, I remember being so geeked looking at Itachi and Kisame like, holy shit, these niggas are definitely some real killers, bro. Honorable mention, bro, All For One from My Hero. He just look like he got a lot of history. Like, you look at him and think, what the fuck happened to this nigga, bro? Where is his face at? My last point, but definitely not least, is gonna have to be personal connection to the hero. A personal connection doesn't necessarily mean they have to know each other on a personal or deep level, although that is a valid way to go when writing in the factor. But looking at characters like Dabi with the long lost son move, or Obito being Kakashi's long lost friend, I just mean that they have to challenge each other on a personal level. Like Deku and Shigaraki being total opposites influenced by opposite surroundings and mentors, they both followed a greater force and stayed in their shadow to then become the main stage for their side of the coin. Deku surpassed the symbol of peace and Shigaraki surpassed the symbol of fear. It's kind of like it was destiny for them to be final adversaries. Or I don't think adversaries is the right term, but it was like destiny for them to be a final fight. You can also analyze Naruto and Pain when it comes to personal connection. Pain, who was an orphan and learned under Jiraiya for years, wanted world peace just like Naruto did. Essentially, he flips Naruto's own ideology back at him, asking him shit like, how are you going to stop the cycle of hatred with no plan? Like, Naruto wants peace, but he doesn't know how to achieve it without violence, making Pain's philosophy of forced peace really logical. Naruto even begins to completely understand Pain's philosophy. It's crazy how a character that can at times feel like the total opposite of the protagonist literally challenge his own ideals and morals. That's like a nigga that you don't like listening to the same music as you. I'm gonna lie, I hate that shit. Also, I know I said I was on my last point, but another quick honorable mention is the threat level of the villain. Low-key, this ties into the whole presence thing, but like, bro, I want the main villain of a story to seem untouchable for at least a while. I hate the mastermind with strong minions cliche. If there is a villain group, I feel like the leader should have the ability to beat every other member of the group in a 1v1. And give that nigga bonus points if they can jump him and they still lose. I love the feeling I get when I'm reading something and I have to genuinely think to myself, how the fuck are they going to beat this guy? In my opinion, Bleach does this really well without even using too many hacks for real. Like, Peak Aizen just felt untouchable because of his raw strength and Ryatsu power. Hacks can be cool too though, like the almighty ability that Yuhaba has made him feel like a real god fighting against like regular niggas. If a villain doesn't flex his power on niggas once or twice, he cannot reach my S tier. You have to have some type of extreme strength behind you, bro. Like, Gojo would make an extremely tough villain. When you think about it, his personality, his image, and his power literally make him the strongest force in Jujutsu Kaisen for 95% of the series. Imagine if Yuji had to overcome him to reach his goals. Absolute cinema, bro. I'm telling y'all niggas. At the end of the day, a villain is not just an obstacle. They're the backbone of the conflict of the story. The driving force that pushes the story and the character to their limits. A great villain is not just evil for the sake of it. They have a lot of intricacies that go into them, like the ones I just covered, to make them feel real. Whether it's through their crazy strength or power or their ideology or just looking cool as fuck, the best villains stay with you a long time after the story ends. Just as much as a good protagonist should. Without a good villain, the stakes feel weak and the journey does not feel real. And the hero has nothing to truly overcome. So the next time you see a cool ass villain that feel unbeatable and complex and maybe a little justified, just know that you read in Peak or you watch in Peak. That's facts. Short video today, by the way. Thank you for watching. Love you guys. Bye.